By mid-September, Merrill Lynch was canceled at one point beyond triple in a losses, saying the problems gradually reached up to his old friend Jet Grondahl. O'Neill's had named Fleming co-president of Merrill Lynch, along with Frank O'Neill, shortly of the Kim left, although he was still under strict order to stay away from fixed income. The problems on the mortgage desk seemed too deep to just look over way. Grondahl explained it to Fleming how serious work and began tapping into his own source of Merrill Lynch to see if he could find out what was going. One of those sources was Bray told Crontrell that the truth the write-downs were going to be much bigger than anymore. On the mortgage desk was admitting which by then was around $3 billion. Crontrell convened his house Fleming, who convened it to O'Neill's. O'Neill's asked to see Braid. The two men had known each other for more than those years. They had even worked together in occasions. O'Neill knew that Braid understood risks as well as anyone or Merrill. I hear you have a model on the serious that disagrees with the evaluations being put out. There be some mercy on Nils began. No, Braid replied. He didn't have model just a big of the envelope calculation. Then he gave Nils his number, $6 billion in loss, and he added it could be a lot worse. I haven't even looked at the high grade CDOs, just the CDOs credit and the mezzanines. O'Neill looked like he was going to throw up. What about the protection we bought? He asked, but explaining that with AIG no longer in the business, Merrill had been buying protection from the monolines, which had taken on so much risk they would be insolvent long before they could pay off Merrill. O'Neill kept probing. What about the risk models? He asked. Wordless replied the brain matter of factly. The risk wasn't captured by Bird, and the Bird analysis of the underlying credit quality was wrong. Other risk models didn't do any better. O'Neill's listened in silence. Braids explaining how an important Merrill's risk measures had been changed in such a way as to discuss the increasingly amount of triple A risks on the firm's books. Braid today says he doesn't not believes he's not proposed changed he had the ball. He thinks it might have even been a regulatory change, but it had that effect. It distorted the true natural lyrics. He told O'Neill after taking for a few more minutes break shot. O'Neill's hand in wished him to luck. I hoped we talk again, he said. That's when O'Neill told him he wasn't sure how much longer he would be Merrill Seal. for for Bright, it was sober-being conversation. He could see how shattered O'Neill was at the news. For O'Neill, it was an infuriating conversation. How could Bright convey this information so calmly? Wasn't he supposed to be management risks? Didn't he bear at least some responsibility for what the mortgage desk had done? O'Neill still had the idea that Brett had been pushed aside. He thought Brent was still a risk manager on the front lines of the mortgage desk. The fact that he himself had put in place the dynamic that allowed good risk manager like Brett to be cast aside allowed him entirely, and yet having vitality wake up to the magnitude of the problems. O'Neill absolutely understood what had to be done very simply. The films needed to be sold, as quickly as possible. One thing they understand clearly is that when you face a black hole of great downs, there is no way to know how deep the hole really is. The New York solutions would be to raise capital, which in fact firms all over Wall Street were scrambling to do. O'Neill thought that who too was foolish. What will happen if it turned out not to be enough? You will never be able to raise additional capitals. Investors would be too fearful that the next round might be washed away to it would cause even great panic. I couldn't look employees straight in the eyes and say that everything is going to be okay. Mm, he later told friends just selling equity and waiting for the crisis to unfold just didn't seem to be a winning formula. O'Neill's would later tell Fortune magazine that Merrill was like a fighter in the middle of the ring with your hands tied behind you and unopened. Whenever he chose could just wail away on you, but you're right in the face, and there was no referee, so he could kick you in the balls, give you an elbow to the chin, and you could do nothing except the standard until they decide he was tired or finished or beneficent or whatever it was and turned it away and walked out of the ring. He added that seemed to me to be unbearable. He had we had to have alternatives. The only alternatives that made sense to him was Minger. By the middle of September, O'Neill was taking to Merrill's board members about the firm's exposure to subprime risks. The directors were stunned. Previously, they had always been told that Merrill's subprime risks were minimal. Neither were hurling for the fifth time that the firm's estimated loss was more than $1 billion. The Forbes heard its own outside lower to besides it, a number of directors asked for tutorials on Sidious. Even more startling to the directors was O'Neill's demeanor. Almost overnight, he had gone from appearing unworried about Merrill's supreme exposure to being deeply and openly pessimistic. People who saw him in the office said he operated to be depressed. It was such a startling about pace that the Merrill's directors had a difficult time taking him completely seriously. It was not that they didn't think Merrill had a problem, it was that they thought O'Neill was panicking, but he wasn't. This time, O'Neill was did right. In September, O'Neill arranged a secret meeting with Ken Lewis, the CEO of Bank of America, at the time Warner Center in Midtown, Manhattan. O'Neill knew that Lewis had long loosened after Merrill Lynch, and his earlier purchase of Countrywide had shown Lewis couldn't say no to an acquisition he wanted. Ever since O'Neill had realized the depths of Merrill's problems, he had been holding private conversations with Lewis about a possible deal. He had done as without informing any of his lieutenants of the Merrill Lynch board. O'Neill wanted to be able to go them with a deal in hand. Lewis had even thrown out a number. $90 a share at the secret meeting. O'Neill suggested bumping the price to Lewis didn't object.